We have survived this long not by strength, but by seizing opportunity when it so eagerly presents itself.
It's time to set your hyper relays to hype, because on May 12th, Stellaris Overlord, the new expansion for the game, will be dropping. Yes, May 12th will be the date and will be available for $19.99 US and or local equivalent, so be aware of that. But with that out of the way, some of the features of the Overlord expansion haven't been addressed yet. The aforementioned hyper relays in particular are going to change the entire way you play the game. And I'm not even trying to over dramatize this or anything. Hyper relays are some of the craziest new additions that are going to be added in this expansion. Let's go and take a look at them and see what they do. To bring it all down to brass tacks, this is essentially how the game works right now. You have your fleet, you send it to a system, and if you want to move it down the line, say towards this place, and we keep an eye on things over here, essentially what happens is the fleet will jump from place to place and then we'll start moving across the system. With the new hyper relay network, this is a thing of the past. Rather than having to move your ships across systems, slow boating them across, you can build a new structure within the game called a hyper relay network. And essentially what it does is it's a prototype of a gateway. It is built outside of the gravity well of the system, and essentially what it does is it connects all systems in a line from A to B, completely ignoring any sort of slow boating across system. Essentially it is a train or a road across the stars. Now, for those of you who have been with us for a long time, especially before 2.0, you may want to point out that this was already in the game back then, where you came into a system and you would immediately jump into the next system. You didn't have to slow boat back over the entire system to get to the next one. This has now been returned with the relay network. Now, the relay network by itself is actually a really fascinating way with dealing with these sort of things, because obviously you still want to keep the idea of having to move across systems that you do not directly control. It's more of a strategic thing to build. In general, building a hyper relay can be pretty expensive. It has 25 influence costs, 500 alloys, you need to have 100 crystals as well, and basically what happens is you connect the dots throughout these systems. In addition, this technology is tier 2, which means it's not even that late in the game, and essentially what happens is you build this relay network throughout your space over the course of the early to mid game, connecting all these places together. And I really like this idea. I've talked about this in the past already, talking about special buildings that you would potentially be able to build on, say, a station or something along those lines that would allow you to faster move between points. But this particular system essentially bypasses that completely to make sure that your internal space is completely insulated and that you can move to places really, really quickly. And especially on maps like this, where moving from one side to your empire to another, that is a gift from God himself, because my lord, am I annoyed by having to move all of this stuff back and forward. There's not much had been said about whether or not piracy is still applicable to this, whether or not trade moves through these gateways, similar to what would happen with standard gateways, that is. But it's something to think about and something that I'm really curious about when it comes to the game itself. Now, when it comes to the type of bonuses and edicts that you can have, yes, there are edicts applied to this as well. You can have a upkeep of gases, which improves the stability of a system. So let's say that we are in this system over here. It adds a +3 stability modifier to any planets in this system, which is pretty darn good. Any sort of flat bonus to stability is always great. I really like this. It does have an upkeep cost of gas though. Then there is moats as well, which improves automatic resettlement chance as well as resettlement costs. So in combination with, say, a transit hub, which I don't have available on these buildings right now, I believe. Yes, I do. It will increase automatic resettlement cost will chance even more. So that's great too. Then there is network amenities, where every single system that is part of the network will get a bonus to pop amenities usage by 10%. Essentially, it reduces the amount of amenities they use with a crystal upkeep to those hyper relays. So essentially what it means is you build this sort of Silk Road to the stars that distributes all the goods of your empire to all the places that has a relay network or a network relay in it, which I think is incredibly cool, and it really improves the overall style of gameplay. Because let's put it this way, this is going to completely change the way you will play. You will focus most likely a lot on building these hyperlane networks in order to improve the internal stability of your empire and making sure that you can move your fleets quickly and efficiently. Now, other empires can build these networks as well. If you are part of an alliance, or you're defensive with them, or your friends, you can use their hyper relay networks too. And on top of that, you can build them inside of vassal territory, which brings us to the next bit. So if you have a hyper relay network that goes into a vassal's territory, and you have a bonus unlocked for those particular vassals, so that's the Bulwark, the Scholarium, as well as the mining version, the Prospectorium. Essentially, you have additional bonus that you can have. These vassals will give you bonuses such as a reduction in crime, similarly to the previously mentioned bonuses in every single system that has a relay in it, as long as it's connected to the network. It can improve science output. It can reduce planetary build speed. It can increase it at least, and reduce cost. This basically means that building a solid network is going to be really useful, because you can distribute all these bonuses over your empire. Of course, this also means that if there is a relay network that in your space and you're trying to rebel and become independent, that relay network will most likely, I'm going to guess here a little bit, fall towards you, which then gives you the opportunity to deploy your troops a little bit more effectively. Let's put it that way. But that is not all. There is also a slew of improvements that are coming in with the quality of life patch for the game itself, such as if you are a corporate aggressor, as in you are running a megacorp and you're doing an ideology war on somebody, they will in fact turn into a type of empire that runs merchant guilds and have an oligarchic authority, not so much into a mega corporation, which is rather useful. Corporate subjects will now automatically get access to all of the planetary positions in a overlord's territory. So if you are a vassal, or if you have a vassal in your empire that just happens to be a mega corporation, they'll be able to place buildings in your empire without needing one of those joyous deals with you. So that's pretty nice. I think that is pretty good. If you're running a parliamentary civic, you can now get the factions a lot earlier. Why a lot earlier? I don't know. Normally you get them about 10 years into the game, so that's nice. If you want to nominate somebody else for custodianship, that's now going to be possible. So if you're playing in multiplayer once again, and you want to bestow the mantle of custodianship on somebody else, then you can now do so. Unbidden will no longer spawn in pulsar systems, which would absolutely nuke their shields, and considering they only have shields, that would be a bit of a bugbear. Intel for military has been lowered to 30 instead of 40, and that goes pretty much down the line, so you have a better idea of what's going on inside of an enemy's empire. As mentioned, gateways and hyper relays can be built inside of vassal space. Thank the Lord, I no longer have to claim individual pockets inside of enemy territory in order to vassalize them, then take that system and then build a gateway in that system, because that was the workaround there. And apparently, if you have Grasp the Void, the Ascension perk, you will have an increased chance of getting FTL techs. So things like jump drive, improved hyperdrive, etc. There has also been some changes to the migration system. Apparently the UX has been updated, so you can have a better overview of why pops are not migrating. Are they slaves, for instance, then they need a slave processing center. Do they have the right, do not have the correct habitability and these sort of things? So those are all things that are coming in there as well. ID worlds, ring worlds, Gaia worlds, hive worlds will have a higher percent of migration as well, which makes perfect sense because these are perfect worlds to move to. Pops will now pick the planet to auto-migrate to based on the planet with the most free jobs rather than the least. So they will also take housing up a little bit better, which means that if you build an Ecumenopolis and just build up your districts in that, no problem whatsoever. That place will get filled up pretty quickly. There are 11 new achievements. Feel free in the comments below on what you think it's going to be. A whole bunch of new colors that are part of the anniversary editions. 70 new flag icons, 45 new flag backgrounds, and yeah, it's completely bananas with the amount of additions that are going to be added in this patch. And you will be able to get your hands on this on May 12, 2022. So what do you think? Hyper relay networks. Is this everything you ever dreamed of? The Silk Road to the stars? Are you a big fan of, say, Civ and you just build roads everywhere? Are you ready to build Rome in space because all roads lead to your capital? Probably Unity. Yeah, I know it is the case. But yeah, what do you think? I'm looking forward to your thoughts below. There's a lot of major changes coming up with this expansion and a lot of extremely worthwhile things. We have the orbital ring, we have the quantum catapult, the relay networks. It's a very logistics-orientated expansion. I think it's going to be one of the better ones overall in terms of making Stellaris even better and more accessible with features, etc. So, let me know down below. Also, Scott Manley, if you're watching this, hi, how are you doing? Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and let's get the hype in the hyper relays.